So you heard about Waking the Sleeping Giant. You heard about subscription business. Now you heard about what the Indian game industry looks like. But what has it been for a developer who's been in the game for a long time? I would like to call upon Druhin Mukherjee from Godspeed Games, originally from Calcutta studio in Pune. But when he said we do developer days, he said I have to talk to Pune. I have to talk in Kolkata no matter what. So we have Druhin here, experience of building games for 15 years. Druhin, over to you.
Hello, hello. Okay, so I think some great presentations from Shivani and others also. So what I'm going to talk about is probably some mistakes that all of you are doing, which I did, and as indie developers and as also AA, AAA developers, you might be doing as well. My name is Druhin. I've been in the gaming industry for around 17, 18 years now. If I don't know from when I've been developing games. Professionally, the first game I have worked on is in 2006, I believe, and then kept on working games. My experience started probably outside India, and then I opened a gaming company called Godspeed Games in 2015, along with Ranbir, and we started off being services and then moved on to creation of own IPs, then also different things like publishing and co-development and a lot of other things, right? So the presentation is some mistakes from my career, and hopefully you don't repeat those mistakes, yeah? Because the same questions that everybody asks is, why are we not making great games from India, right? We are making great trailers, that I'll give it to you, amazing trailers, finished product nahi hai. And why is it that? So let's go one by one as to some problems that may be happening in the gaming industry. So I think already Shobik covered brilliantly about the history, about the Indian gaming ecosystem in general. But also from a development point of view, a lot of things changed, right? From 80s to 90s to 2000. So my gaming industry career started from console and PC. I started with PC, very soon moved to console. I did mobile game development very late. I would say probably 2014 is where I looked at mobile game development very, very seriously, and then also did a lot of mobile AA, AAA as well. But majorly it has been following from the 2000 era of Xbox, Nintendo, Wii. Have anyone heard about the Wii? Played any games on Wii? Yes, who said yes? Okay, great. Atari, how many have played games on Atari? Amazing, one person is there who played. তুমি বুড়ো বাচ্চাদের জিজ্ঞেস করছি. So Atari and all those games, we started game development from there on, and then the era of mobile came about, which kind of created an absolute blast about what mobile game development can do in terms of reach. A term which many investors would use is TAM, SAM, SOM. Anybody heard of what is TAM, SAM, SOM? Very good. It's good that you don't listen to these terms, because we have to deal with these things a lot, which is total addressable market, total serviceable market, and all those things. And when you look at those numbers, mobile development becomes the top. But I am from that field of thought that all three platforms have their equal importance. If you're making a PC game, you can make money. If you're making a console game, you can still make money. As indie developers, you don't need to make $4 million. As when I was working very early on in a company which created the game Operation Flashpoint, probably you guys have not heard of that game, long time back. It was in the era when the GTA was made, and that was getting, yeah, it was made by Codemasters long time back. So at that time, one of my seniors said that as indie developers, you should make enough money to make the next game. You should not make money, I mean, it's a thought process. It's such a glamorous field. You will make a game and then drive Lamborghini next day. It doesn't happen like that. It requires a lot of hard work. It requires a team. There are certain examples where people have made a lot of money with some standout viral games, but generally that's not the case. And you should make enough money to make the next game, and then the next game, and then one game will give you back all that you have dreamt of. That is the whole idea, right? You take a lot of examples. Uh, Angry Birds is, of course, a common example. I'm trying to think of other games. Risk of Rain, has anybody heard of the game? Risk of Rain? No. Uh, I don't know. I'm scared to ask. Same. Spelunky, has anybody heard of the game? Spelunky. Okay, okay, good, good. So those are kind of games you should also look and play around. So if I ask all of you, apart from shooters and racers, how many games people have played? So that is where you need to expand your horizon as well. And that's all developed during that era. And if you look at the current era, of course, VR is also a prominent factor. You can make games for VR, but there are different use case also for VR in real estate, in automobile industry, and so on. Many, I think in Calcutta itself, many companies are actually doing a lot of good stuff on VR. I think folks at Red Apple also are doing a lot of good stuff in VR. And so there is a lot of potential, right, in VR in general. So first point, again, mistakes. The importance of player feedback. I think somebody asked or somebody kind of mentioned the point about, I think from back there, where they know a problem, but they don't know how to incorporate that. And it's important that you have to incorporate this, because when you're developing a game, that game is very precious to you. And when somebody gives feedback which is not something you like, you may not take it very lightly, right? But feedback from friends, family, girlfriend, boyfriend has no significance. They'll only say game is good, and this is the best thing they have played. So have a very diversified feedback loop that you have. And based on that feedback loop, you will know a lot of things. You will know whether your character is overbalanced. You will know whether your game is boring or not. You will know whether some kind of other UI, UX you need to develop or not. A good example of this, back in 2010, there was a game that got released called Crackdown 2. Anybody heard of the game? It was on Xbox. Crackdown 2 was created by this company called Ruffian Games, which basically got later rebranded at Rockstar Dundee. It was not Rockstar North, but Rockstar Dundee. And they did a player testing and community testing for their game Crackdown 2, and they realized that their entire UI UX loop is broken. Because what they expected the players to click and do, nobody got it. And these are not juniors. These are people who have worked on GTA, Rockstar North, other AAA titles like James Bond, GoldenEye, and then came and started working on those games. So it's not something only when you're fresher, you're going to get this problem. When you're senior, you're not going to get the problem. It's a common problem to have. So have that feedback loop going in your games. Very important. Many people miss it, or they keep it quite late. As indie developers, try to incorporate it very early on. Maybe have dev blogs. You have seen dev blogs by international developers, right? To create that thing on YouTube or Twitch, do that. It might help. This is a very important point because there are certain people in this audience also have been guiding. And I call it the scope creep. What it means is, as you're building the game, your ambitions also improve. Now you want to do more from what you got started with. And what happens because of that, the game becomes way too much complicated than you expected it to be. There are many cases which I have found people started off making a game which is single player. Then they thought, okay, no, I have to have multiplayer. And then they added multiplayer, but the architecture did not support multiplayer. Now they have a really bad game. So scope creep it's not the easiest thing to balance, because you want the best game for the audience, but you need to have a clear boundary as to when you want to release the game. I'm not going into complicated stuff like go-to-market strategy and all of those kind of stuff and confuse you, but at least have a clear boundary as to when you want to release the game. What is the scope of the game, right? Because you need to budget that out as well. Very, very important for indie developers to have that in mind. It kind of also improves on your project focus, because if you do not have deadlines, as indie developers, what happens is you typically don't give deadlines to yourself. You keep on working because that's the craft. That's not a good way to work. Even if you are 5-member team, 3-member team, have deadlines, and if you are not meeting deadlines, as if you are working for a large studio, try to see if you can push some extra hours to meet that deadline, if that's required. Otherwise, your game will not be at that state, right? So continuously have that scope creep check, because otherwise the budget of your game will keep on increasing a lot and you can't really manage. Another important point, example of prototyping. There's a company in New Zealand called Pickpock Games. Anybody has heard of the company name? Pickpock Games? No. So you have heard? Okay, great. So again, I was working in New Zealand for a while, so some examples from New Zealand. So they were making a game called Giant Boulder of Death, right? You can search it up on Google Play or Apple Play later on. And the game mechanic is very simple. There's a giant boulder, it rolls, right? And as it rolls, it will pick up stuff and it will get bigger and bigger. And then you destroy stuff along the way. It took them around many months to get the mechanic correct. And this is also a very, very experienced studio. Mario is the owner of the studio, very, very experienced studio. They have, I think, worked also on Evil Dead, the game series and all of that. But no matter what they did, the mechanic of the ball rolling just did not come through, because it was appearing as if the ball is sliding. Do you understand the difference between roll and slide? So they made it that the game will only work if the rolling mechanics is correct. If the rolling mechanics is not correct, anything around that won't work. So they created a team just to make sure that the rolling mechanics is correct, and they gave time to prototyping, because if they said no, let us have this 6-month sprint or 1-year sprint to make the game without getting the rolling mechanics correct, the game would have been a flop. Instead, the game is a super success, or was a super success at that time. Brilliant game, brilliant way of how they managed it, right? So very important for you guys also to make sure to value the prototyping phase. Don't go directly into making the great game just after you've created that wonderful trailer. Don't go directly into creating that game itself. Understand, a game will be successful only when it's fun, because you need to think as a gamer. Because one point, I'll cover this in the next few slides as well, again on the user experience design, but it delves in the same genre that right now a gamer is not going to play your game because you are saying this game is made from India. That's a fact, right? You don't go to Netflix and search movies made by Indian directors. You are going to look at the Korean K-pop drama. You are going to look at the best American series or the best UK series, right? Because the quality of content is very important, right? Same from a user experience design or any of these things that I'm mentioning, right? It's important that you're creating games, creating UI which is at a global level. It's not going to work out at all if you say that, okay, we are a team from India, we are making local content, please play the game. They will not play the game because it's not the same quality, right? So as developers, you need to strive to make games which have that higher quality in terms of output, including user experience design. Now, can anybody tell me what's the difference between UI and UX? Any ideas? Good, good. Okay, and UX? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I'll come to you later. Again, Buro there last. Let's ask the people first. Anybody? Because it's a common issue, and I think people don't get it. The difference between UI and UX, and they would either get a UI artist and hope that they can do UX well, or get a concept artist and pray to God that they can do UX. Right? Pray करने से game नहीं होता है, right? Because I see many studios making the mistake. You'll get an artist, the same artist is doing concept art, BG, UI, UX. Maybe they'll teach them Unity also and start, okay, Unity code bhi kar lo. No, UX is very, very important. What he said is partially true, but UX is also the experience of the user. Whether a button will be small or large, it will be on the top or bottom, the color will be what. Those are all part of UX, and you need good UX skills for any application that you're developing in general, right? One of my favorite topics again, insufficient testing. Nobody does testing, right? Because only the team members does testing, and testing is only something that you focus on when the game is almost near the end, right? Because testing is not so relevant. And that is one of the biggest mistakes. So when we were doing QA, we have tested, we still have a very large testing team. We have around 70, 80 testing QA people. But when we are doing purely services, we did testing like local, functional testing and compliance testing for Xbox, PlayStation, PC, mobile, for many, many large IPs. Payday 2, Payday, you have heard of the game. And there are other IPs also that we have tested very large. They involve us quite early on in the testing phase because they expect to find bugs. How many programmers are here? Can I get, show, talk? Yeah, raise your hands. Okay, very nice. And the rest are artists or? Okay, so the programmers that are there, do you like the QA folks? You don't like the QA folks, right? Because they are going to find bugs. And that's the mentality shift that you need to have, because the more bugs they find now, the better it will be for you, because once it goes in the public domain, gamers can be very supportive, but if they do not like your game, you know what they can do, right? So it's better that the QA team that you have, it can be people from whom you know, but it has to have honest feedback. Has to be somebody who's giving you feedback about the game, and you have to be open to it. You cannot be so egoistic and so rigid. I think this is good. I think this design is good, and so I'll keep with it. You cannot make successful game. A small example is a game called Sculpty that we created back in 2009, which eventually won the BAFTA. Had a wonderful team. And the biggest advantage of that team, even the artists and the programmers always knew that the product is more important than their ego. So if there were situations where the programmers wrote modules and we didn't use it, the artists created splash screens and we didn't use it because the product demanded that those will not be there. So keep that open mind and keep on having this testing loop in your whole development phase. Ignoring market trends, I think already to an extent some of you, like the previous talks already covered this. You need to look at some of the trends, even payment trends. I think Shivani covered a few points on the subscription model and other models as well. Look at some trends. Because she's covered the mobile part, let me talk about the console PC part. How many of you are developing games on PC and console? Some, I think Aditya there, I can see already. Others are also doing PC console, right? Now think of, when you're doing console, think of the Xbox Game Pass. For example, there is of course PlayStations and others, but what will enable you to use the Xbox Game Pass? It's very simple. You just need to also have the game released on Windows Store. It's as simple as that. And suddenly you have another monetization model on that. So if you look at the Unity report, it said games which did well are games which were released on multiple platforms, right? So you have to think, if you're making on PC and console, releasing it also on the Epic Store. Release it also on Nintendo Switch, on Xbox Series X, maybe also on Xbox One. Because that will give you a better opportunity, and definitely use these game passes because it helps. I have seen it myself with the games that we have co-developed or co-published, it helps. So look at currently what is going on in the trends, not just in development, but also in general monetization models and so on. Oh. How many of you are at this stage where you are willing to get a publisher or willing to raise funds? Show of hands. Some, okay. Now, what is the right time to raise fund is a very complicated question, right? I have, for Godspeed, we have raised fund twice. But previously, while working in other AAA companies, I've been part of multiple fundraisers. And one of the best answers, recently Ninad also from Reliance also gave the same answer, but same sentiment. The best time to raise fund is when you don't need it. That's the best time. Because if you are trying to raise fund at a time where you are requiring money, you will never be able to negotiate. It's very difficult. And I'm giving you directly an honest answer, right? Because I've been in that situation. You need to be in a position where you can say, no, I don't want this deal. And you cannot be in that situation if you are crash crunch. And so it's important for you when you're having a company as an indie studio, do not try to raise fund where it's a very disastrous condition, because then you are doing something known as a stress sell or stress assets deal or something like that. Don't do it. Try to see if you can get that cash flow positive some way and have some kind of authority when you're having those negotiations. Right? First point. Second point, is VC the only route? The answer is no. VC is one of those options. Definitely a good option, but one of the options. There are multiple ways to raise funds. I think in the previous slide, I saw some of the investing ventures. There are many of them whom I know quite personally, and the same sentiment. They are willing to deploy funds, right? But they need to look at good opportunities in companies and in products. So you need to know, is it a good time to go to a VC? Is it a good time to bootstrap? You know what bootstrap means, right? Some of you here are already bootstrapped, I know, and that's a good strategy. And one good example I'll see from my own experiences, we started Godspeed as service companies, and we worked on AAA, AA, multiple IPs to actually be cash positive, because I was very, very adamant along with Ranbir, who is my business partner, that we will raise funds only when we require it. We'll bootstrap it as much as possible. And we didn't raise funds for 4 or 5 years. We grew to about 75 people without raising any fund. Now, as a company, because we have changed our business operandi, we are more than 250 people across 5 international locations: Dubai, Brazil, Lithuania, India. But in general, you need to have that focus, and you need to be very good with money. I mean, you cannot be an owner of a company and not knowing how to handle money. So in your own personal life, if you cannot handle money well, you need to first fix that, because chances are when you handle a company, you are going to make the same mistakes. You understand what I'm saying? So you need to handle that quite well, because handling money is also important, and raising fund is also a very important time that you have to raise. I'll go in the next few slides a bit fast so that I'll leave some room for questions as well. Live ops support, I think some of you know, something that many companies don't cater into, and this is basically support after the game is released. Many of you think this is only probably required in mobile. That's not true at all. It's also required in PC and console a lot, because you need to listen to the community, you need to understand what's going on, you need to fix all of that and have that constant community engagement, community management going on in that way. Because there are a lot of this negative player experience which you can convert to positive player experience by listening to them and creating an update for them and so on. So it's very important to have that mechanism in place. This is something, again, Shivani mentioned, I'll double that. This is so bad across the board. I can't even explain how bad people are with marketing, people who are making games. And so you cannot make money if you are not spending in marketing. Nobody will know your game. And it's not mobile, it's also PC and it's also console. Nobody is going to know your game. How much great that game is, AA or AAA, nobody is going to understand where to download it, how to have the partnership. So don't underestimate the value of marketing. And if you're raising funds, probably the single biggest reason that you are going to raise funds is because of this. Is because you need to invest that money back in the marketing budget. So if you're owner of a company, try to focus there. A point which I mentioned already is, again, overlooking community building. Discord is probably something that you're all used to, right? But apart from Discord, there are multiple community building exercises that you can do. There are different platforms now which kind of are very specific to gaming itself. I forget the name. There's a Discord-like community which is specific to our community building. So all that is something that you need to take into account while building your community. Now the bonus question before I move on to questions is something that is, again, I see many companies making the mistake of, is remaining pure services company for a long time. And I know many of you are here also, I've met you before, that you are staying as services. It's good to have services because you need to have that cash. But have a thought process of how to create IPs. If not IPs, at least somehow getting exposure to product. Like if you are a art-based studio, for example, how can you get into this, right? Simple example, there are many use cases. Let's say there's a good opportunity that comes your way, right? You just give an offer to the UK-based or US-based company, I will not charge money for that. Instead, can I have a small rev share model working over there, right? Have that exposure and slowly grow your market in that. Because if you stay pure services, the biggest problem is that you will always be dependent on client contracts, always. And whenever there is a big client which pulls out, a big anchor that pulls out, you will have the problem, right? 15 people, 20 people, 25 people, you will not feel that impact. Maybe you can adjust it. But as I said, if you are in services for a long time, see if there are certain ways that you can think of to also have some exposure in IP and assets, just to grow your idea as well, how products are made, and also have a bit more relief point if, let's say, a certain client backs out or you are not able to negotiate a good deal. Again, the same problem. If the situation is bad, if there are many people offering the same services, I don't want you to cut down on your hourly rate, which is also a bad thing. Initially, it might work to get the work in, but in the long run, it's a bad thing because you're never going to be in a situation to increase that rate because I'm going to finish this on that point is India has always been looked at as a country of opportunities? No, a country of cheap labor, right? Until and unless we change that mindset that we are a country of skilled labor, nothing will change. And only way to change that mindset is to produce good quality games and to show the world that we can create good quality games, right? Understood? Okay, thank you so much. That's why I talk.
Any questions? Yeah, Mike here, please.
Yeah, hi Druhin, my name is Tahir. I'm working, I'm an indie dev who's working on his own game and aiming to kickstart my own indie dev studio. So this is a general question. I think you might be the best one to answer it. What tips would you have for an indie dev who's aiming to make it big, kickstart his own studio in the market?
So the first question is, do you already know the kind of game you want to make? Do you already have an idea about?
Yeah, so I have a game that's in development. It's for mobile. It's a casual game.
Okay.
I have had experience in game development. I used to work at a company, and then recently last year I went solo. So I'm aiming to kickstart my own studio now.
So some boring advices first. Have a check on the finances, right? In terms of how much time and money you will require to finish the game. Very important. And then if you are making casual game, just look at a bit of what should be your realistic expectations out of the game, right? Because if it's a casual game, you will have to spend a bit of money on user acquisition. So you have to cater that how much money, where you are going to get that money to propel that into user acquisition. So that's very important because, and then looking at models of monetization models that will work for you. But it's important to have that thought process, right? Not go just have a game, finish it and release it. So that's not going to work out. So have that planning in place already. How big is your team?
It's currently 2 people.
Okay.
I'm this solo indie dev, and I have another person who's helping me with the art side.
Okay, so you might have to double down a bit on your tasks. That's okay. It's been done before. But you have to have this thought process, not just the programming part of it, but also this distribution, marketing, user acquisition. That's very important if you want success commercially from the game as well, right? Because the whole point is enough money to make the next game. So that should be the mantra. So have a thought. If you want to connect with me offline also, I can provide you some one-on-one
Sure. Thanks.
advice as well. No problem.
One more question there. Question there. Go ahead, Just pass the mic. Can you pass the mic, guys? Just pass the mic to him. No? Pass it back after that. Huh?
So good afternoon, sir. I am Sashank. So, sir, you worked so many years in a gaming industry. So my question was, can you describe a particular challenging project that you have worked on, and how did you deal with the obstacles from that project?
Interview question lag raha hai, but ठीक है.
नहीं sir, experience based.
But I'll answer it. Okay. So one of the toughest projects I think I worked on was Operation Flashpoint. One, because it was early on in my career, and at that point Unity Unreal was not there. We had to write all of it. There used to be a engine called Ogre. I don't know if you guys have heard also. OGRE. Look it up. It was some, again, older people might know. The most difficult part was the rendering part, because we had to render a lot of stuff on the screen very intensely. There was bombs, there was blood and all of that. So the code pipeline has to be written in a very efficient manner. And that was very challenging. These days, that's why it's very easy to do all of that. So the level of expectation out of the game has increased. That's the only thing. But that time, I think it was very difficult to get some good-looking game out very easily. It was very tough. So the rendering pipeline was one of the most difficult challenges at that point of time.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, last question. Last.
Hi, Druhin.
Yes, Shubho?
Hi. Okay, my question is that if someone is not interested in gaming, but still he or she wants to make a business out of this, so what is the advice for you?
No, it's a good question. So do you have to be in the gaming industry to run a successful gaming business? The answer is no. One, again, it was on the slide, Light Fury Games. The main person who started Light Fury is from Unacademy, right? No gaming background. So at that point, your business acumen has to be really good. You need to look at the same parameters as to what is the finance model, what are the cash flow model, where I'm going to raise funds, what is the expense, what is the spends, how to do that. So as any business does it, you have to just look at it as an entertainment business and run it like that. So at that point, you need to then hire the team who are experts.
So is it possible, right?
It is 100% possible. If you are interested also doing that, I can give you some advice how to do that, but it's possible. It's been done before also. There are some well-known studios where the owner did not have much gaming experience, but has to be a really good business person, and you have to get a really good team in place, and you have to trust the team.
So I have a hope.
Yes, you have hope.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I think Winzo also is a good case in point. As a company in India, Winzo has just done typically that.
Yeah, Winzo is a good case.
They are ex-Zostel people, founders who exited and started Winzo.
Again, Palace on the Hill, right? One of the games.
Malasan,
Niku Games.
Niku Games.
So one of the founders, I think, has come from the textile industry, right? So if somebody can come from the textile industry and make a game and release on Steam, yeah.
I think one of the guys of this, just to add, the recent Sony PlayStation India Hero Project cohort, the Suri the 7th, they come from like true collar coders from True Collar, just gaming enthusiasts who got into like. So a lot of cases of that.
Thank you.
A lot of hope.
Thank
for
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you,
you,
everyone.
Druhin. Good to hear from you. Like always, brilliant.
Just 1 second, Macha. So I'm very happy that an event of this magnitude is happening in Kolkata, because both of us, me and Chotujit, has been actually pushing this for a long time to have more events in Calcutta and Guwahati, because people, like my studio is in Pune, and the idea is if you have an event in Calcutta, maybe only 15 people will come in or 20 people will come in. The fact that what he told me, 140 people have registered and have come in, this is basically one of the largest gathering of the developer day across India. So thanks a lot to all of you for doing that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I hope this is start of something great, right? The community really builds. You got a lot of veterans here. Like, reach out to them. I keep saying it, but I think it's very, very important. Like, don't be shy. Just keep talking to everybody in the room.